أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is His servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. In Surah An-Nisa, in its 105th chapter, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, وَلَا تَكُلْ لِلْخَائِنِينَ خَصِيمًا, that do not be an advocate for the one who betrays trust. A cornerstone of this religion is integrity, honesty, to be an individual who is upright within a Muslim framework is somebody who does not lie, who does not break promises. Hadith after hadith gives us an indication that righteousness is rooted in being truthful and one who loves truth and speaks truth. And an absence of righteousness, as well as a presence of everything that is wrong, is rooted in adopting an attitude that validates and justifies the breaking of trust. Ayatul Munafiq Thalath, the Prophet ﷺ says that the signs of the hypocrite are three. إِذَا حَدَثَ كَذَبْ, that when he speaks, he lies. وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ, and when he makes a promise, he breaks that promise. وَإِذَا تُؤْمِنُ خَانَ, and when he's entrusted, he breaks the trust. May Allah make us from the strongest of the believers and remove from our hearts any signs of nifaq whatsoever. Understanding this as an imperative for a community, that there's a lot of different things that many of us in this room have felt over the course of the last week. An election cycle that some of us might have been indifferent towards, as well as some of us who are extremely devastated, and everything in between. A recognition and reality of what the coming 4 years might look like. But in relevance to what it is that we're hoping to discuss today, the revelations of allegations against a prominent Quran teacher within the American Muslim community, a man by the name of Wissam Sharif, who engaged in illicit conduct with a student of his and his student's daughter and was subsequently arrested. That has left a lot of people in our community feeling very confused, hurt, and betrayed. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells us in Surah An-Nisa, do not be one who advocates for those who betray. Straight from Quran. The challenge when trust is broken is that it can't be platitudes that create healing. You definitely don't want to get to a place rhetorically where you throw out words that you have no sense of how it is that the people around you might receive them. an understanding as to why we delve deep in this community on hadith that speak about ethics and good character. We spent weeks prior to this Jummah speaking about the 4 hadith that Ibn Abi Zayd rahimahullah says are the foundations of good character. And the first one that he says, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawm al-akhir falyakul khayran aw liyasmut," that whosoever habitually believes in Allah and the last day, let him speak good or be silent. This is one of those instances that if what you are saying, you have no idea what you're saying, then just shut your mouth. It's a challenge in the prism of modernity that somehow believes a higher level of consciousness philosophically, that you can argue that there's 2 sides to things always. Sometimes there's not 2 sides to things. And this is one of those instances where you can't say that, well, maybe there's something we just don't know. And you have to recognize and understand that your words are going to be things that you are accountable for. And if you don't know what to say and your own anxiety arises and you want to, if we assume, still have good intention to help someone, that kind of language is not helpful. This is a community that has not only engaged and sided with survivors of abuse, we've built a shelter in the Bronx where survivors of abuse are residing right now. May Allah make it easy and make that space a source of healing for them. And that's not meant to be something that we boast or brag about. We're supposed to do these things. We as Muslims are supposed to take care of the most underserved and underprivileged in our communities. And your heart should hurt. And this is why we also look at a hadith. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That you will not have complete iman until you love for your brother and by extension your sister what you love for yourself. You might not be hurting, but there are definitely people in this room right now who their relationship with Quran has changed, their relationship with iman has changed, their relationship with Allah has changed, their relationship with themselves have changed. And if you love for people what you love for yourself, you don't want anybody to feel that kind of pain. And you definitely don't want to add to it, be dismissive of it, say it's not a big deal. And you carry forth within every prostration a dua for the healing of those that are hurt. And a recognition that the strength of a community is rooted when its most underserved and underprivileged needs are met, not when those who are in a place of privilege continue to have space for themselves. We can't be a place that builds spaces that just end up being boys' clubs for people who come from the predominant culture or have the highest level of affluence and wealth. There's enough masjids that are like that, and that's not a critique, that's just a fact. And the advantage of being in a space where most of you are not sitting next to somebody who looks like you requires us to think deeply that our differences are not just about what is outward, but what is inward as well. And when people carry hurt, we should hurt also. And if we're not hurting, we're not evidence of the hadith that says we are like one body, that when one of the organs is not functioning, the entire body feels fever. I should want my sisters and brothers to not be in a place of pain when reality slaps them in the face of what the darkest potentials of humanity can be. I don't want to be in a place where I'm distracted by dunya so much that I stop to just take a moment to turn to the person next to me and say, "Are you doing okay?" Can we have everybody move up? If you can come in really close, fill in any carpet that's in front of you. You can follow Abu Bakr's directions as well as he's telling you to move. There's still a lot of people that have to fit. If you yourself are feeling hurt by this, or you know somebody who is, the unfortunate reality is that people have experienced trauma from betrayal in all walks of life. and the particularities of traumas that are associated with betrayal, that are not things that are necessarily mundane, but the reality that what you envisioned actual reality to be suddenly isn't the same as what it was a week ago. I had a friendship, a relationship, a commitment to somebody, and all of a sudden it's different. They didn't just call me a name or do something to that extent, but an egregious violation of trust and confidence that now shifts for me how I understand morals and ethics to actually exist. And it's relevant to each of us as Muslims because we are supposed to be people who engage differently. Not just in a mode where our sense of conduct is reactive and we exist in a plane that is virtual. But the vision of our hearts should be so awakened that we can sense what it is that tension exists in the people around us. So a first step for many people is just going to be shock and disbelief. How could something like this happen? The unfortunate reality, it is possible. You don't want to be in a place where you undermine capacity, that every single one of us in this room has a frame of existence that's not just the physical bodies that we have, but why our spiritual tradition gives us a framework Islamically of the self is so that we can understand that there are different parts to us. A spiritual heart, the qalb, the aql, the capacity to discern right from wrong, irada, sheer will and determination, the jasad, the being. But relevant to this discussion, each one of us has a nafs also. You have one, I have one. And the nafs has capacity to be in a place where it's in control. And the recognition of disbelief that comes that how could a human do this to another human? How could he do that not only to a person, but to a child? Understanding that disbelief in a state of shock is something that is a normal reaction. It's not an abnormal reaction. And if you have gone years of your life, decades of your life, without ingesting or consuming something within you that is like this, your body is learning how to tolerate it, and it's going to go through a conundrum of emotions and feelings. And if you do this to somebody else, don't get mad at them if this is what their reaction is. May Allah never make us from those who betray anyone's trust. You move from states of disbelief and shock to states of anger, agitation that is not just simply rooted in annoyance, but a transgression of boundaries. Trust is violated, not because I can't believe you ate my food that I left in the fridge. I can't believe that you didn't invite me to this or that. We're talking about trust not even being eroded, being shattered. Why wouldn't you be angry? When we talk about la taghdab, this is not unrighteous anger. You are angered because there is injustice and inequity. You go through phases where it might create grief, sadness, depression. May Allah make it easy for all of us. And you have to love the person next to you enough, even if you don't know their name, even if you've never had a conversation with them, that you don't want them to feel this. But it's something that's quite possible. That I'll have difficulty now picking up the mushaf. I'll have difficulty now in getting up for my prayers. I'll get to a place where the inward conversations become that much more difficult to really have. And the possibility of some of these stages existing for a long time is also a reality. You probably know people, if not you yourself, who have held feelings that go past a month or a year. There's children who never forgive the adults in their lives for the abuse that they sustain. And it's not their fault. Children shouldn't have to hold adult emotions in their hearts. If you've been given the gift of a child, it wasn't so that you would mistreat a child. Could you fault a young woman whose father was unfaithful to her mother and she holds that anger inside of her heart for decades? It's not reasonable to assume that our religion is something that is reductive and simplistic and cast the burden upon the person who's having natural human emotions in the aftermath of a difficult circumstance, that they also somehow now are in the wrong because it's not just a product of time. You cannot tell people time is going to heal it all. That's not how it works sometimes. And if you give somebody that as a platitude that is baseless, they might hold a distrust and pain in their heart for years. And that's the fourth thing that people could go through. Just not knowing how to trust anything or anyone anymore. Who do I know who to listen to? Who do I know that I can pull up a clip of them online and just hear what it is that they say? The nature of the heart and its attachment is not something to undermine. But that's why we have to be a community of love and not a egocentric love of the self that is going to be a mode of accountability for us to be in a place where Allah asks, were you thinking of anyone other than yourself? But a healthy love that is bold and courageous, that is willing to say that people don't feel good, and we want to help heal in a way that's sensible. And the fifth phase that is very much so a probable outcome is an acceptance. And it's not an acceptance that says, well, this is just the way things are, because we have to work to ensure that this is not how things are. But an acceptance that enables me to no longer be under the control of the one that betrayed my trust to begin with. That I don't forget the feeling nor what catalyzed the feeling, but I don't let the feeling control me or overwhelm me anymore. Don't be somebody who uses religion in a way that you know is antithetical to what our religion stands for. Ethics is not devoid from practice and ritual. You do not want to be a person who grows up to be a man who is anything other than a man. Do not reference hadith that you don't know what they mean to validate and justify abusive interactions within a marriage, let alone outside of it. This is not a religion that condones things like marital rape. It condemns it. You cannot say it is my right to just do whatever I want because we have entered into this contract. The aqd of nikah is something that doesn't just render permissible physical, intimate love, but it renders permissible love in all of its forms, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And if you are not mature enough to enter into something that honors love in all of its categories, don't get married. And if you live in such a way where you know the realities that people are in a place of pain and not in a vacuum, it's on top of everything that people have synthesized in a year of everything we've seen happen to our sisters and brothers in Gaza, a conflict that is ever increasing in Sudan, what we see happening in the Congo, the Rohingya, the Uyghurs, all kinds of things that are going on. And then on top of that, somebody's got to sit and say, the guy I used to listen to recite Quran ended up being the worst of all of them? All we sometimes have to do is validate what people are feeling. You don't have to give solutions all the time to ease your own anxiety when you don't know what to say or do. These are the days where it's more important that you are saying salams to those you know and those you don't know. Because you don't know what somebody's going through, man. You don't know the heaviness that they're holding and they're carrying. And as hard as it might be, I want you to channel any iota of love you have inside of you. And I want you to think about this girl and what she's going to grow up with in terms of a broken spirit and psyche. And out of honoring what it is that we know of her, may Allah make it easy for her and grant her the healing she needs. You cannot have a simplistic understanding of this religion that looks at people and judges them based off of how they dress, what they listen to, this and that. I have met people who have gone through, unfortunately, similar circumstances. They can't read Quran because it's triggering for them. The next time you seek to judge a woman because she's not wearing a headscarf, what do you think it would feel like for a child whose entire core belief structure has been torn apart by somebody who is supposed to represent religion to them, and all they want to do now is hide? You think they want to walk through the streets wearing a scarf, being the most visible of people? It's not as simple as you think. It's not. Other than the most simple part of it is just have some love for people, man. Stop feeding your own ego. Stop centering yourself. This is what he did. His own self-interest took interest over everyone and everything else. And you can try to look into what it is that catalyzes these things and put yourself in a downward spiral that brings you to a place that says, how could somebody fundamentally do this? The reality is that people can do these types of things. People also can be agents of beauty, agents of compassion, agents of things that are good. And right now, you need to choose to be that. Don't pray this day of Jummah just with your body. Pray with your heart. Be in a place where you understand that your choices have consequences, and this is what it is, and why platitudes won't make a difference. You don't know what kind of pain someone's coming in to a gathering with. And if all you see, what you perceive as inadequacies, your heart's telling you something about you. If that little girl 20 years from now walked into most masjids and they weren't in a place where she was dressed a certain way or looked a certain way or whatever else, most of us might not even talk to her, because the likelihood, based off of what her mother looks like, is that she wasn't coming from a predominant culture that most of us came from. How many of us would just pass her by or be bothered by whatever potential consequences she has emotionally that causes her behavior to not be what we quote unquote understand to be normal? And that's why you have to do your part to make sure that this community and the spaces that we are going to create for ourselves are spaces built on principles of love, compassion, and mercy. So when that little girl grows up and she's looking for a Muslim space to go to, she knows she can come to our space because of people like you. And never the opposite of that. That she couldn't think to come in because of someone like you. Who do you want to be? And you got to determine if you actually believe in this thing or not. It's not something you inherited from your parents. It's not something that you only do twice a day on holidays. It's not something that you come and sit once a week on a Friday. Don't just be Muslim here. Be Muslim there. Look at the people who are claiming our religion in such atrocious ways. And if somebody like that is going to take Quran away from people, that's why you got to pick yours up and read it and start acting based off of what it says. I'm sorry for any hurt that you're holding. And I wish I could tell you, here's some things you could do to just make it go away. I don't know why it is that things like this happen. But I do know that we as a collective can ensure that nobody has to go through it by themselves. And if you are perpetrating any kind of oppression or abuse against any person sitting here right now, you better change your ways. Have some fear of Allah. Do not quote permissibility that is devoid of ethics to validate what it is that is your own self-interested decisions and choices. Do not make excuses for the good that you have ability to do and you simply choose to not do it, while you simultaneously consider the interjection of all kinds of inequity from your hands to be something that's justifiable purely because of the power you hold in relation to a title or placement in some kind of friend or family structure. You're going to have to stand in front of the Creator of all creation one day. The Prophet tells us in hadith after hadith, on the day of judgment, that the one who betrays will have a flag that is being carried over them, so that everyone on the day of judgment knows the betrayal they engaged in. Don't break the trust anymore. You choose to be in some form of relationship with somebody, then treat it with ihsan. Stop playing games with people's hearts. Don't butt your nose into people's business that's not yours and interject where it is that you should be. Here, we have choices to make. That's where the hardest part of this comes, man. Is that he chose actively to betray. Don't follow that example. Meet that darkness with your own light. Be purposeful in putting some goodness in the world in these days. Make dua that Allah makes our community a community where the brokenhearted can always come and find the healing that it is that they're looking for. That He makes you somebody who honors the rank of actually being somebody's sister or brother. And never gets us to a place where we seek to validate or justify any other person's oppression or betrayal. Do not say that there was potentially two sides to something that there is not two sides to. And then, to the best of your ability, with whatever Allah has endowed you with, go out and just fill the world with your light, so that we might be the reason people have hope in this world, and never the reason that someone might dread it. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسول. I know people are hurting for a lot of different reasons. And the capacity for change is something that we do have. You can find the healing that you need. You don't have to do it alone. We can help connect you to the people who would be best for you where you are, but don't go through it by yourself. If you feel a sense of hopelessness, you don't know what it is that's going to happen in the coming weeks, months, years. A president who is racist and a known bigot, somebody who we know is unethical and is validating his own tendencies of mistreating women. He was where he was once before, and we're still here building what we're building. Our Prophet tells us if the hour falls upon you and you are going to plant the tree, then still plant the tree. And so we're going to just keep doing what it is that we do. And we're that much stronger when each one of us is a part of getting it done. When the difficulties come, it's okay to say that something is hard. I know that our God is watching, and I know He's going to put it all in balance when we stand in front of Him on that day of judgment. May Allah grant us ease on that day. But if you need some space, you need some support, don't go through it by yourself. If you don't know how to respond and the shock is there, or you're in a place where you've never experienced something like this before, or if you have and it brings you back to that place you experienced it before, it's okay to feel the confusion. It's not going to be an easy fix to say if only this person does this or this organization does that, then all of this will go away. There's always been terrible people in this world. But there's also always been people who stand up against them and give us an indication of what goodness actually is. May Allah make us people of goodness. Just check in on the people around you. It shouldn't be an uncomfortable or awkward experience. Recognize and realize what it is that people are holding right now in terms of heaviness. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll be there for each other the way that is pleasing to our Creator, so no one has to go through any of this by themselves. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present here and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from affliction, anxiety, and anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness, jealousy, animosity, or envy towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and hope, hearts that are drawn towards things of real goodness and beauty, hearts that find themselves deep in your remembrance, for indeed in your remembrance do hearts find rest. We ask, Ya Allah, you who is the source of all healing, heal all those hearts, Ya Rabbi, that are in a place of hurt right now. We ask, Ya Allah, that you make this community a community that always stands with those that are oppressed and never the oppressors. And for any one of us who is here that is engaged in any act of oppression towards any of your creation, Ya Rabbi, keep us from doing it ever again. Help us to remember that we will stand in front of you indeed one day, Ya Allah, and make that an easy standing for us. And give us the opportunity to fill our books while we are in this world with acts that are pleasing to you. And forgive us, Ya Allah, for anything that we do that renders your displeasure. For any person, Ya Rabbi, who has been hurt, abused, assaulted by anyone that they looked at as a caretaker, a caregiver, a teacher, an authoritative figure, we ask, Ya Allah, that you grant them healing. Help us to build communities and institutions that put into practice what is necessary to ensure that we never justify or validate or create the circumstances that render this type of pain for any person. We ask, Ya Allah, that for this poor little girl and her mother, that you grant them ease, grant them relief. And for any child, for any person, adult, young, or otherwise, who has sustained any type of abuse in any form, we ask, Ya Allah, that you grant them healing as well. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيموا الصلاة.